It is 6 o'clock. It is time to call the Sherwood City Council meeting to order. At this time, I would like to ask Pastor Terrence Underwood from New Beginnings Church to come forward and lead us in our prayer tonight, please.
If you will, bow your heads in a word of prayer with me tonight. Dear God, we thank you for the privilege and opportunity to come before you with our concerns and desires. We acknowledge and obey what your word tells us to do in Proverbs 3 and 6, that in all of our ways we should acknowledge you and you will direct our path. We ask you to lead us, the leaders here, in making good decisions and doing what's best for the city of Sherwood and its citizens. Give Mayor Young and the city leaders an ear to hear and a heart to understand from your divine wisdom and knowledge the concerns and needs of the people. We want your will to be done because you know what is best for us. You will never lead us astray when we trust in your unfolding and your loving providence. We know we have nothing to fear in the future, lest we forget how you have led us in the past. Help us to see obstacles as opportunities to better understand ourselves and others in love and respect. In Jesus' name we pray. Bless this meeting. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the roll, please.
Brooks. Here. Harmon. Lilly.
Here.
McMinn.
Here.
High. Sanders.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Broderick.
Here. Approval of minutes of the regular meeting on February 25th, 2019 is transcribed.
So moved.
Second.
Sanders.
Aye.
Brooks. Aye. Williams.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMinn.
Aye.
Harmon.
Aye.
You have in your packets January 2019 and February 2019 financials. Are there any questions, any discussion? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, committees and or commissions. Advertising and Promotion Commission.
We did meet, and the minutes are in the packet. If anyone has any questions, if not, we'll meet next month at our regularly scheduled time and place.
Thank you. Civil Service Commission. Parks and Recreation Committee.
We did meet. The minutes are in your packet. If you have any questions, feel free to answer them. I will be happy to answer them. If you feel free to answer your own question. I'll be happy to answer your question. Otherwise, we also had a wonderful field trip out to the splash pad, the soccer complex, the tennis complex that are all under construction, and they look wonderful. I'll tell you, if you haven't had a chance to go out and look at them, you might want to give Sonny a call and see if you can line up a trip out there and take a look at them.
Very good. Thank you. Personnel Committee.
We did not meet, but we do have something on the schedule for Thursday the 4th. We will be definitely meeting on the 4th, April the 4th at 5:30 at Bill Harn Rec Center.
Next item on the agenda, Planning Commission. Senior Citizen Committee.
Mayor, we did not meet, but we are preparing for the senior adult fish fry on the 27th of April. We need donations, gift cards or silent auction items, whatever you can bring. We certainly need those to raise the funds for the senior adult center that we do.
Very good. Sewer Committee. Street Committee.
Street Committee did meet. As always plenty to talk about. So good progress moving towards engaging engineers, getting designs and stuff done for the use of our sales tax dollars, and of course just ongoing work in general. Minutes are in the packet. If you have any questions, I like Charlie's idea. You can answer your own questions.
We usually like those answers the best anyway.
Mr. Luddy, could we share maybe just a little bit what Arkansas Department of Transportation said regarding that turnaround there
You absolutely may. Go for it.
There's been some question regarding, y'all help me directionally challenge here, as you're heading north on 167, and you take the exit and go under the interstate to go back south on Warden Road. Am I doing right directionally? Okay. Right by Academy, Saltgrass, where St. Vincent's is. The highway department is putting in a do not turn because we've been having a traffic issue there with people coming under the interstate and wanting to turn across into, y'all are nodding your head, you know what I'm talking about. So you now have a sign there, and they're going to be striping it, and they're going to be putting those little bounce back reflectors there to keep people from going across from that lane versus merging onto Warden Road. So I just want you we wanted them to know it's happening. So you might want to pay attention to it.
Cool. Thank you.
Very good. Take the agenda.
A resolution appointing Kyle Blakely to serve on the Sherwood Street Committee for a term to expire December 31st, 2020.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Sanders. Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMahon.
Aye.
Harmon.
Aye.
An ordinance amending the 2018 General Fund Budget Ordinance number 2172 and the 2018 Street Fund Budget Ordinance number 2173 and the 2018 Wastewater Budget Ordinance 2174 and the 2018 Advertising and Promotion Commission Budget Ordinance number 2169, declaring emergency and for other purposes. First reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place the ordinance on second reading.
Second.
Sanders.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMahon.
Aye.
Harmon.
Aye.
An ordinance amending the 2018 General Fund Budget Ordinance number 2172, the 2018 Street Fund Budget Ordinance number 2173, the 2018 Wastewater Budget Ordinance number 2174, and the 2018 Advertising and Promotion Commission Ordinance number 2169, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. Second reading.
Move we suspend the rules and place it on third reading.
Second.
Sanders.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMahon.
Aye.
Harmon.
An ordinance amending the 2018 General Fund Budget Ordinance number 2172, the 2018 Street Fund Budget Ordinance number 2173, the 2018 Wastewater Budget Ordinance number 2174, and the 2018 Advertising and Promotion Commission Budget Ordinance number 2169, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. That is the third reading of the ordinance.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Sanders.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMahon.
Aye.
Harmon.
There is an emergency clause.
Sanders.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMahon.
Aye.
Harmon.
Aye.
An ordinance amending the zoning for the property located at 7225 Highway 107 to remove the conditional use allowing for the rental of moving type trucks and trailers. First reading.
All right. I think that I spoke with Rory today, and he was going to be here.
Hi, I'm Parker.
Rory Thompson with Youth Forge.
We received notification regarding the proposed ordinance.
Could you go to the mic? Yeah.
So we first received notification regarding this hearing today and the proposed revocation of my client's conditional use, which was about 2 weeks ago. During that time, we received the what I have as a proposed ordinance regarding his conditional use, which was 2116. He received that and, of course, applied for that back in 2016. Of course, he came before you. I was not representing him then, but came before you all and, of course, agreed to the conditions and restrictions in his conditional use for the rental of trucks and trailers. Again, that was 2116, and I have copies of that if you guys need a copy of it. But essentially, at that point, it was for the trucks and trailers and the rental of those. Since that time, and I guess we need to go back to 2017. In 2017, my client and I reached out to the city attorney, Mr. Steve Cobb, regarding the request or information regarding what my client was allowed to do. At that time, he showed interest of parking a truck by 107 or near the road that was a free use truck for his customers to use that are storage clients. At that time, we reached out, like I said, to the city attorney, and I've got copies for everyone, and I'm going to pass out 2 different emails because I want to talk about each of those.
Thank you, ma'am. If you don't, if you didn't, we'll share.
Okay.
She and I can share. What was your name again, young lady? Thank you.
I think I'm pretty close. Yeah, I think we're good. Worried about these. And like I said, these are 2 different emails. And so back to 2017, the summer of 2017, my client, of course, was facing the citation issue with the U-Hauls, which is what he applied for the conditional use for. Of course, we're not here today to say that he is perfect. By no means he is not. But he did agree in 2016 to comply with the conditional use terms. At that time, he attempted. It was very restrictive on him, and he'll speak a little bit about that, some of the restrictions, as well as some of his employees have some words about those restrictions and just how restrictive they are on his business and how difficult it is to comply with some of those. Although we concede and are not disagreeing that he did come in here and say, I'm going to do my best, I'm going to agree to these and try to comply. Of course, because they are so restrictive, there were a lot of wrinkles to iron out, and that happened over a time period. I believe in 2017, him and I came before the district judge, and Mr. Steve Cobb was there. We went before the judge. He passed it. Of course, then within a few months, Mr. Cobb came back to us saying, look, we found another citation. We were in line to be before the judge in 2018. And then, of course, we received email from Mr. Cobb stating that we were in substantial compliance, essentially, and they were going to pass on trying to enforce any more citations. And Mr. Cobb, if I'm not correct in reiterating that, I believe that's what happened in 2018.
I think we reduced it to a warning at that point.
Right. So there was no need for a hearing. We did not have to go before the district judge again. All of these citations that we're talking about that my client did receive were regarding the U-Haul, so the rental of trucks and trailers, which is what his conditional use speaks to. It's what he had left trucks out on, either clients returning them, not putting them up in time, or trucks just parked in the parking lot. And so that's what he was dealing with. Since that time, since 2018, as far as we are concerned, or anything that's been brought to our attention, he has been in compliance with the U-Hauls. He has not had any issues with the U-Hauls being left out that we have been brought to our attention or anything that he's aware of as he stands here today. The issue that we are here on today is the separate truck, which is a U storage and a moving U truck. This truck is not for rental purposes. It is for customer usage. And as you can see, we'll go back to the 2017 timeframe. This is when he first was appearing before the district judge regarding the U-Haul citations and violations of his conditional use. And as you'll see, kind of flip to the second page, because of course how emails work, that's the first in lineage of time. And you'll see that the city engineer at that time was Ellen Norval, and I apologize if I'm saying the name wrong. I don't know if this person is still the city engineer, but we received email stating that, and my client was inquiring about the 4101 East Keel Avenue, which is the USA Storage, if you're not aware. They have a promotional customer usage type truck that they park out on Keel Avenue, closer to the road there. So my client inquired, said, this is a very similar business. We're trying to inquire how we can do that. And so this is the response that we received from the city engineer, stating that 4101 East Keel Avenue is C3, just like his business is. It was a mini warehouse storage. It is a legal use in a C3 zone. although they have a truck that is available for customers to use, that is not the same as a vehicle rental business. And so essentially at that point, we were inquiring what the difference was. How were they able to have their truck out on the road and we weren't? And so that was kind of the comparison. And we got a really great explanation from the city engineer stating that the trucks he was attempting to park out at that point were his U-Hauls, which were rental trucks. And so that's where the city engineer drew that line of difference between the rentals and customer usage or advertising type truck. Of course, as you'll see on July 28th of 2017 on the first page is when I asked if my client would be able to do the same thing that USA Storage did in their C3, just like my client's C3. And I stated, my client is hoping to have a used storage truck without U-Haul markings on the truck that his used storage clients can use for free and parking that truck on 107. Would that be allowable based on what the 4101 East Keel Avenue location is doing? To which we never received a response. I believe Mr. Cobb had reached out to the council or attempted to try to get some kind of clarification, and we never received a firm yes or no.
What was the date of that, please, Brooklyn?
That is July 28th of 2017.
Okay, do you have the June 21st, 2018 email from me?
I have the July 17 of 2018 email where we talked about it again, which is the second page that I presented to you.
Okay.
And again, I stated, Mr. Cobb, we spoke yesterday regarding the usage of a moving truck for used storage customers. Any update from the city regarding whether this will be permitted? And this is on the single page. Again, we waited an entire year before we inquired again because we were trying to get clarification as far as whether this was permitted or not, or are we on some kind of gray area? How is USA Storage able to do it and we're not, essentially? And I've also got photos of the truck that's on the street for USA Storage. I'll pass these out to you guys just so you can kind of see what kind of truck I'm talking about if you're not familiar with it. But essentially, this is what we have been inquiring about over a year time frame. To which, again, we didn't really receive a firm yes or no answer. It was kind of that gray area, I guess, and we never got a formal answer on it. So at that point, when my client came to me about a month ago, he presented to me that, hey, I'm ready to purchase the truck. I'm ready to wrap it in the used storage moving you. Is this something I'm allowed to do? And at that point, I looked back at all of our previous emails, all the previous conversations, letters that Mr. Cobb and I had had back and forth. Never received a firm answer on it. So at that point, I looked to the code. I looked to the C3, which is open display of merchandise, which again is not what the free usage truck is for. I looked to his conditional use, which gave him more authority in his area than just the C3 zoning. And that only spoke to the rental of trucks and trailers. So again, after reviewing the code pretty thoroughly and then reviewing the responses that we received from Mr. Cobb, there wasn't much guidance there. So at that point, I advised my client, it doesn't look like anything prohibits you from placing the truck out there just the way that USA Storage has placed their truck out there. So at that point, I advised him to go ahead, park it out there, and then, of course, within about 2 weeks, first notification that we received was from Mr. Cobb calling me saying, I've got a letter of basically a drafted proposed ordinance revoking your client's conditional use permit. And that was the first time that we were even notified at all by the city that this truck was not okay. I think it's pretty clear my client has been really trying in good faith to work with you guys. It may not be apparent to you, but I know because I've worked with him very closely. We really are trying to do what's best for everyone involved, the citizens of Sherwood, city council, and then, of course, his own business. He's got to think about what's profitable for him and what's beneficial for him. And, of course, I'm aware he came before you and agreed to comply with all of the conditional use in there in 2116. But, of course, this did not speak directly to it, so I told him he had the right to park that truck out there. And, of course, the first notification that that was not okay was when he received the ordinance, which, again, he moved the truck as soon as we received the proposed ordinance, and now it is not placed out on 107. You can drive by it today if you would like to see that it's not there.
Ms. Parker, I appreciate the information. I think, and Mr. Thompson and I had a good conversation today, and I think that as I explained to him at the time, and first off, I think Mr. Cobb may want to address the fact there's an email missing in your line of emails here. Where was that email you just showed me?
Well, it was just, this is on
Your
June
mic's not on.
21st of 18.
Is it?
I just said, this was it regarding that, the USA storage truck and that question. I said, since the business with the trucks is conditional use granted, I'm sorry, since the business with the trucks is conditional use granted by city council, I would believe your client would need to come back to city council for an expansion. That's what I was saying in reference to your question about could he use that truck. I didn't think I had the authority to tell you that he could do that. I thought we would have to come back and ask for an expansion of the conditional use.
And that's consistent kind of with the conversation I had with Mr. Thompson today. You know, as I recall the meeting when we granted the conditional use of the property for the storage, for the used storage, and for the rental of the trucks. There was quite a bit of discussion regarding the trucks and regarding the fact that the council was concerned about the parking of the trucks on that property. And, you know, it wasn't that we were necessarily concerned with the parking of U-Haul trucks on that property or rider rental trucks on that property, or we were concerned with the parking of trucks on the property out where they could be seen. I remember making the comment, somebody made the comment, when the trucks are parked in the back of the property, they can be seen by people from North Little Rock. And I said, I don't care what North Little Rock can see. I only care what people from Sherwood can see. And I remember the conversation that we had that night quite well. And it was a lengthy conversation. I think Mr. Thompson remembers it quite well. So the fact about whether the truck is for rent or whether it's not for rent is kind of irrelevant to whether the truck is parked where it's parked or not. The issue with us for that particular piece of property, which is a conditional C3, and when we are zone conditional, we have the right to put specific conditions on the property and to consider the use of the property. Now, when we're zoning something that's simply C3, we don't have the right to consider what the use of the property is and to put specific conditions. But when we're doing a conditional use, which this was a conditional use, we do, and we did. The concern was the parking of trucks on the front of the property. And they were to be parked at the back of the property. Now, I understand now that they're parked all the way in the gated, kind of the fenced-in areas where they park the U-Haul trucks, all the way back in the fenced-in area. The concern, I think, with this truck was that it was parked all the way at the curb. And even the picture you're showing us here of this USA Storage Center truck is not parked at the curb at Keel. It's parked a good, I don't know, probably 30 feet or something back from the curb, 30 or 40 feet back from the curb in the parking lot. If y'all wanted to propose a specific parking area, if you wanted, we read this one time tonight, and y'all wanted to propose a specific parking area on that lot for this particular truck, so that it doesn't have to be backed in like you back in the U-Haul trucks and have a space off of 107 for that, maybe we could consider that. But we'd have to, I think, maybe look at something like that. But that's just my thought. The rest of the council may not agree with me. They may want it completely off the lot. That's just my thought. Because I know I was not the only one up here. There were 7 or 8 people out of 8 upset about that truck where it was located at the last meeting. And I will also tell you that the ordinance you got, which was drafted by me, not drafted by Mr. Cobb, was drafted by me, was less onerous than what was discussed at the last council meeting. What was discussed at the last council meeting was a revocation of the use and privilege, the occupancy permit and the privilege tax until this was dealt with, which would be a much more onerous penalty than what we came up with. But then when the response to Mr. Cobb was that, what we're trying to do is the same thing as what USA Storage is doing, then I said, well, then let's just put them in the same position as USA Storage, remove the conditional use from their zoning, so they're zoned the exact same as USA Storage. Then they're just going to be a straight C3, which is what USA Storage is. And so that's what my ordinance essentially does. It removes the conditional elements of the zoning and puts Mr. Thompson in the same position as USA Storage. And then he would be able to park his truck the exact same way as USA Storage, but he wouldn't be able to rent the U-Haul trucks. So,
well, see, I think that's and I just want to get the viewpoint of the city council for the record. Essentially, I think what your argument is, and I don't know if everybody else is the same, but you're stating that B3 with the condition operator, is that correct?
I'm saying we had the right to put conditions on his C3 use. That's conditional use C3. Yes, we
correct.
had the right.
And does the conditional use directly speak to trucks for customer usage parked anywhere on the lot?
So
I have to look at the ordinance.
I'll tell you, I was certainly on the council when this came up, and there was lots of discussion about to even allow trucks to be parked, or not. And the whole reason this even came up was that someone potentially returns the truck on a Saturday evening before, or after they're closed. Where are they going to park the truck? And the conversation was that, the truck could be there until they are opened, and then that truck would be moved. It was never an open conversation about whether we were going to allow trucks to be on the lot at any given time, 24. The intent and the understanding was that even U-Haul trucks would be there for a limited period of time, really less than 24 hours, even though that's not really stated in the ordinance. But again, the discussion was around people returning U-Haul trucks after the business had closed.
And I would say I remember the same thing, and I was very much against it because I thought that's kind of coming into our city. The first thing you're seeing going down that hill is the U-Haul trucks out in the parking lot. And I was not for the U-Haul trucks, but I went ahead and voted for it with the condition, and that those trucks, like Councilmember Lilly just stated, would be there for a limited time, and that's not what we're seeing. I mean, maybe lately they've been that way, but a year ago that wasn't what the case. There were U-Haul trucks out there all the time. They were just very nerve-wracking. It felt like it was being thrown in our face, basically, because there are U-Haul trucks out there. They were there all the time.
Well,
May I ask you a question? Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thought it was coming from out there. I was like, wow.
Why is there a need for more advertising? Because when you look at the building, it is plain and clear as to what that building is. Why is there a need for more advertising or for a truck with advertising on it?
Well, I can kind of answer that question. I've got some prepared things here. I hate to read, but I'm also not great at talking. This is kind of an intimidating deal, so I'm just going to kind of read what I've got prepared, but I appreciate the question. So good evening, Sherwood City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you this evening. First, I want to start off by apologizing for any inconvenience I may have caused you regarding this matter. That has never been my intentions. Kind of speaking of what you were talking about there, we strive to be good neighbors and a good community business. I'm running my business. We did open in Sherwood. Some of this is going to be already repeated, so I apologize for that. We did open in Sherwood in 2016, the old Harvest Foods location, 7225 Highway 107. At that time, to my knowledge, there were no city ordinances that addressed the rental of moving trucks. We were instructed that we needed to apply for a conditional use permit to rent moving trucks. So we came before the city council in the summer of 2016. We obtained a conditional use permit at that time that allowed us to rent trucks with several conditions. As we've already spoke, you guys are aware, we have not been perfect in abiding by those conditions. I do want to mention one thing about the conditions, and I think I mentioned it to Councilman Harmon earlier today. Sometimes when someone does return one, it wasn't anything that we were trying to throw in somebody's face or anything like that. But sometimes we have one or two people working at the store, and really, like, if somebody comes and returns one, then we now have to take that. Really, it takes two people because you have to back it into the spot back there. Made an effort to do that. I do want to share with you that the conditional use permit restrictions have been very challenging for our business here in Sherwood. Most people still to this day do not even know that we handle rental moving trucks. We also invested $5,000 in a sign on the side of our building, and still to this day, people have no clue we do rental trucks there. In fact, a lady at Centennial Bank here recently came by and didn't even realize we're neighbors and didn't even realize we had U-Hauls. In Sherwood, we do about 25% of the truck rental revenues we do in Conway and other cities in Arkansas. I do think that the conditional use permit has really affected our business here in Sherwood. And to my knowledge, my competitors in town did not have to obtain a conditional use permit to conduct their business. Of course, this puts me at a big disadvantage because they can openly display their trucks. I'm still thankful for the conditional use permit that you guys have granted, and I do appreciate it. We are trying to grow our business here in Sherwood. And recently, as we've discussed, be okay to display our moving truck because it is not a rental truck. We also asked the city for permission and clarification many months before purchasing a truck and starting that business here in Sherwood. It is a service business like many of the plumbing and heating and air company that I passed on my way over here. To my knowledge, there isn't any city codes that prohibit me from displaying our moving truck. To my knowledge, we've never had one complaint against our business. I understand some of you guys have been concerned. I recently reached out to Sherry with Centennial Bank. She's our neighbor. I feel like if she had any issue, if that bank had any issue with me, I need to change our business. And I reached out to Sherry and I asked her, have we ever harmed your business? Have we ever done anything to hurt your business? And she couldn't say enough nice things about our business. She has a unit at our building. We keep it very clean. The trucks have never caused her any problems. And she was, really shocked that the city had an issue with me. Trying to grow our business here in Sherwood, but we have been challenged with a lack of consistent city codes. We would like to work with the city to resolve this matter permanently. My family would love that. I have talked about this matter many times with them, and I think they're tired of it. I would ask that you guys would forgive me for not completely complying with the terms of the conditional use permit. I'll take full responsibility for that. We will do our best going forward to comply with the terms of the conditional use permit and make you guys proud. I've already got Brooklyn here. So anyways, I can ask any questions. I think maybe I've asked yours, but to your question, people have no clue we handle U-Hauls.
Can I ask a question? In the other cities where you have rentals, is it in the main thoroughfare of the city and you have your rental trucks out in the heart of Conway?
C3 normally you're granted those privileges by right, which is why I selected that site.
And you have different, tell her all the locations.
None of them have any codes that are this prohibited. Because normally where storage, people have a tendency of doing, they need a moving truck to do storage. You can't, so it's kind of hand in hand. I don't know at the time city had a bunch of rules against that. I was trying to comply, but I was kind of told also the other guys are all grandfathered in. So, I want to make you guys happy, but I am trying to run a business over here as well.
I think that I was on the council at the time as well, and I think, speaking to the same thing that Councilmember Brooks mentioned, a lot of our concern was the location and the fact that that's one of our gateways into our city. And I know where some of your other locations are, and they're not the gate, right there as people enter those cities. hesitant about that building becoming a mini storage and how that was all going to work, and talking about what kind of fencing and hiding and so forth that, went into all that. And so, I do recall the same thing as the other council members, the extensive conversations about the trucks and so forth. And I understand, also that, you've had some problems in terms of, the business and the regulations that we put on you. At the same turn, you chose that location when there were other locations you could have potentially have chosen that wouldn't have caused these kind of restrictions to have been on you. We're just trying to look at, the aesthetics of our city by making it as pleasing as possible. And so that's a lot of our concern in terms of, I think it junks up our city. That's, members, opinion.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead. But
I was going to just mention, I think at this point we're trying to come to a compromise. I mean, if it was my client's will, he would have all of his U-Hauls parked out there, and I know you guys don't want that. He would have them all lined up on 107, just like all the other U-Haul locations in Sherwood and every other city in Arkansas. But we're trying to come to a middle ground here. We're trying to understand where you guys are coming from and where he's coming from. So that's why we approached Mr. Cobb regarding the moving storage truck. Hey, if we can't have U-Hauls out here, we've got a lot of restrictions on this conditional use for vehicle rentals and truck rentals. Let's try to see let's get creative and think of other ways that we can promote your business, but also be within the code. So I think the biggest issue that we have is the selective code, meaning that there's a lot of other businesses in the city of Sherwood, the gateway into Sherwood. I get it. But the code doesn't speak to that. And that's where the issue is. It's all of the documents and everything that my client has applied for and the restrictions, all of those say nothing. They're silent on the truck issue being, his moving storage truck that's parked out there. And again, we're not talking about junking up the whole parking lot with U-Hauls. So I think that's why, one of the biggest reasons why we talk about coming before you, again, regardless of you guys asking us to be here today, was to discuss what some of the give and take that we can have. I'm sure the city of Sherwood would want his business to be prosperous and be great there instead of being an empty lot and an empty building. And I think his business looks great when you first walk in. He's done a great job with the renovations, but the issue is we're needing a little give here because what he's doing right now, his business will fail. And if he doesn't have some kind of give here to say, hey, I think my client would, be somewhat okay with that, and it may promote his business, and he may be able to stay there for many years. So I think that's kind of where we're coming from. But again, like I said, when I'm advising my client what he can and cannot do at this location, whereas I've done it in other cities, pretty straightforward in these other cities. No, you can't do that. Yes, you can do that. Here, anytime I feel like, okay, we're on the right path, you can do this, I either reach out to Mr. Cobb, we don't get an answer, or something along these lines. So that's where our biggest issue is. It's very difficult to determine what he can and cannot do based on the way that the code is written.
Well, Councilmember Harmon has suggested that we just read this one time tonight, so it's been read one time. Is the council comfortable with, want to see if we can work out a compromise between this month and next month?
I do. Mr. Thompson, I want to thank you for at least taking a vacant building and making it, because it is attractive, and I agree with Sherry. I'm kind of in the middle here. I don't think that I'm part of the thing. I do think that you kind of like stumped your toe on implementing the conditional use. I appreciate that your honesty saying that, he's not perfect, but that's all of us, I think, really. But the commitment that you move forward and do it the way we ask you to do is going to be critical for you. And sometimes maybe having Mr. Harmon edit this or propose this ordinance change is like a wake-up call. We're serious about this. We need this to look the way we're asking you to have it look. So I like Mr. Harmon's idea. It is a one-time reading, and let's see if you guys can work something out and come back to us, because we want you to be successful. We don't need anybody to fail in their business endeavors, and we want people in our city that have that drive to be successful. So thank you along those lines. But in the same token, be serious about the conditional use. And some of those U-Haul places along Warden Road, they're in C4, totally different animal there. That's the biggest. 3 and knowing the building it used to be, 7 and JFK. So if you'll take that seriously, I think we're willing to be human and realize that you're a human and you made a mistake. Let's see if we can work something out. So Mr. Harmon and Mr. Cobb, I would say, let's one reading. You guys work together to see what you can bring us
so
next
we'll push
month.
this to next month. We'll be in communication.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
A resolution approving an interlocal agreement regarding future maintenance and repairs to the Oneida Bridge.
Move for the adoption.
Second.
Sanders. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Harmon.
Aye.
And ordinance appropriating funds from the general fund 2019 budget for the remodeling of the former Amy Sanders Library of the City of Sherwood, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes, first reading of the ordinance.
Richard Penn, would you please come forward? He has some things he would like to share.
Richard Penn, City Engineer. This time last year, I came to you with budget numbers about remodeling the library, and it was a shock to all of us. So you allowed me to use an architect. We've done that. We had our first bid late in 2018, and that first bid came back even higher. So we knew that we had more work to do, and we went back and reduced everything that we possibly could, and worked with Judge Hale to do everything we could to accommodate his personnel, and we worked in our offices the same way, and we worked directly with the architect. We took out some things that we will need, but we did get it down to the number that you have in the ordinance, $799,575. That is the low bid on the second time that we bid it. So we feel like we're as low as we're going to be able to get it and have a building that meets the code and also will function for what we need. There's a lot of details I can give you to show how much we've done to put as many people in as we can. We believe we've counted 31 workstations in that space, and taking out the common spaces of hallways, entryway, restrooms, those things out of there, we have an average of 86.5 square feet per work area. And that's about the size of a medical exam room. So familiar with those not being all that large. And that's what we have. So we feel like we put as many people in as we can. We do have room for everyone that we plan to hire. We have room to get hot checks moved over into not used building that we currently are in. We'll have a way to consider disposing of that building. Chief Bedwell is also anxious to be able to use the police department building more effectively when the courts have moved out. So I had asked both of the gentlemen to answer any questions you may have for them as to what the police plan to do, what the courts plan to do, what hot checks plans to do. I can answer questions about what we plan to do in engineering.
Richard, what was that initial bid back in December?
$903,575.
And then it came back to about $104,000 difference, and that was taken out considerable.
Yes, and also that number does not include any contingencies. And like I mentioned a moment ago, there's some $30,000 or so of items that we will definitely need, such as a sidewalk from a new door that's required by fire code. And that sidewalk we get from that new door around to the parking area, and that's on the court's side of the building. It's an example of the things that we've taken out that we know we can add back at another time, but we will be adding them back. So to do them now would get them likely at the best price that we're going to get, knowing that we would try to be doing this within a year anyway.
Richard, how much of the, and this is just a crazy question, is, I know we said that some of it's, the remodeling, but a lot of it has to do with this is an older building and now the codes have changed, and so we are implementing on our own selves those new codes. So the cost effect, how much of that cost is probably because of the codes that that's changed with materials and wiring and things like that?
That's the largest driver in the whole thing.
That's what I was thinking.
We have to update the HVAC.
Okay.
And we have to update the lighting. And to do both of those, we have to tear out the ceiling.
It's changing use.
And we've already got some of the floor removed because we had, because the building's not occupied. We had an event last summer where HVAC condensation line plugged up and it flooded the floor. And we had to take the carpet out and dry that up. And most recently, our maintenance man advised me, I was over there this last week, that there was in fact a squirrel in the building when the pest control is working on that. But we have other creatures trying to use the building because we're not there.
Because we're not using it.
So that's,
I have a question. Can you evaluate them like low bid, technically acceptable? I mean, is this lowest bid in the best interest of the city, or the next one up? Is that?
I had the same question. That's between Moser and PwC. There's only $6,000 difference.
right. On the first bid, the $903,575 was presented to us by Moser. Moser is the contractor that is currently building the soccer and tennis complex. So we're hoping you'll be just as proud of this building as you are of the new soccer and tennis building. And we feel like they are qualified to do that building. We think they're qualified to do this one. And when they came back on the second bid, as also being the low bidder, we felt like that they were accurate in showing that they can do it for this amount. Now, there's a time factor difference. We extended the days. In the first bid, we asked them to do it in 90 days. We had 13 bids, and we had everywhere from 90 days to 6 months. And they're all over the place. So Moser's first bid was for 105 days. But there were others for 120, and we learned from the collective first bid that it's probably a lot smarter to give a little more time. So we selected 120 days. Is that right, John? 115 days as the contract time, and put that back out for bid. And Moser came in with their number at 115 days with that low bid.
They've been staying within their contract on the tennis court and the soccer fields.
They've just gotten underway, so we really don't have a lot of experience with that particular contract, but they did offer some value engineering to help out Mr. Jensen on that to make sure that they could get that built at a very economical price. So they did offer their expertise on that one, and they did offer their expertise on this one. We did consult with some of these bidders to find out what they would recommend that we take out. And we took out some of the floor covering materials. So we took out the wood trim in some areas. We took out things that were pretty and would have really, made it a top-notch building. It's still going to be a top-notch building, but we went with some vinyl coverings rather than wood in some places.
I think I was thinking the same thing. This Councilmember Broderick, I started to call you Councilmember Ford. Councilmember Broderick was thinking about that, you worry about the government being built by a low bidder, and it worries you sometimes that to go with the low bid. But I guess if you're comfortable
Well, certainly, on the first round, there was a difference between the low bid and the next to the lowest bid, and it was right at $16,000, and the low bid was 105 days, and the next lowest bid was the 90 days. So we were learning from that experience that, well, the time factor does have something to do, have some impact on it, because possibly that next highest bid could have actually been the lowest if they were given 105 days. So that was another reason that we could not actually approach it as a value engineering opportunity on the first bid. We said, we just got to do it. So we did it over just to try to get things very much in line on every bid.
If this were to be approved tonight, when would you foresee occupancy?
September.
I move for the adoption.
We haven't waived the reading tonight, so I'm going to have to, there has to be a motion to go to the second reading.
I have one more comment I'd like to make. Can I do that? Is that acceptable? We do have a little bit of concerns about the $7.99, some of the things that we cut out, such as the sidewalk that we're going to have to do anyway. And there's no contingency. What are some thoughts about a little bit more in there? Or we'll be coming back in the middle of the project trying to maybe a certain amount up to, or is that something that
are you allowed to do that on a bid process? I'm not sure.
Well,
we can add them back.
It's not the bid so much as it is the appropriation of the funds. If you were to appropriate, less than the first bid, but right at it, say 900,000, not to exceed the 900,000, we stay with the 799, 575, but go back and incrementally add some of these items that we have numbers on for how they were taken out, specifically the sidewalk at $7,329, the exterior lighting, which is a safety issue at night, $5,820. Those types of things. So we've got numbers here that Moser gave us that they used when they were bringing their numbers down from the 900 and 3,000. What we're not asking them to do is put the wood back in there. We're not asking for them to go back with the more expensive materials, staying with the lower.
Both of those items together, it's 12,000. That's a big difference from like 100,000.
But you said there was a $30,000 of those totals of those items were.
Sidewalk from back entrance, 3 aluminum exterior windows, exterior lighting. The consideration for the closed circuit TV and the burglar alarms, exactly how we implement those. On the side lights, John, can you remind me of where the interior side lights? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. It's side light. Okay. Side light being a glass. So a door that's all glass is a one light door, as opposed to like a 15 light or something when it's got the wood. You know what I'm talking about? So the side light is to have the door to the office with a full glass at the side of it. And the reason for that is to enjoy more of the ambient lighting that comes in from the existing overhead atrium glass that's there. None of that is going to be changed. We'll still have the benefit of the natural lighting, but to get that into the office space, once we construct, have that side light on there to let more light out, and that was, like I said, we took those out. That was $11,000. Now, like I said, those numbers about roughly in the $30,000 range for these items, that does not approach the 100,000, but where that difference is from the original bid is taking out the wood and changing it over to the vinyl. And John, can you address how many changes there were there? Would you come up, please? John Johnson's our architect that's worked with us for a year now.
John Johnson. We took the approach to the project that it was about 25% over where it needed to be. And so we took the approach that we had to reduce every division by 25%. So looking at electrical, mechanical, plumbing, all finished, drywall, everything, and trying to reduce everything 25%. We didn't get there. That would have been about $225,000, but we got to 104. So about reducing the functionality of the building and the efficiency of the systems, what we were able to.
There was also a single toilet restroom that had been added in the courts area, and that was for their benefit, and we took that out.
So in other words, if we amended this to say the sum of $280,000 shall be appropriated from the general fund to proceed with the remodeling project, so that you had the additional $30,000 over the $249,575, that would
allow us to
get back those items that you needed. Right. Okay.
Can I ask a question here about legalities, or what about the rest of the bids from the rest of the companies? What's that do to them? Did they all bid with the same thought in mind of dropping these things out on the pretense that we might come back and add them back in?
It was not part of the bid process. I mean,
so they all bid the same, apples to apples.
Everybody bid apples to apples. We did not ask anything about what would it take to add something back until after we had already gone through all the low bids and determined that Moser was the qualified low bidder. At that point, we went back to them and said, okay, you took out some stuff. If I need that back, what can you do it for? In other words, what did you do when you considered your rebid? How did you take that out?
Right.
And that's when they came back with these numbers that I just quoted to you.
So effectively, we're funding change orders ahead of time.
Yes, that sounds like.
Yeah. So.
Again,
in 10 years, though, I mean, we're basically talking about a difference of $60,000. In 10 years, would we think we spent $1 million? I wish we would have spent the $60,000 and had the wood or the, especially if these were in the entryway or if it was going to be a focal point. At this point, it seems like a very small amount if you're spending that much anyway. Just a thought.
I don't know that on a building like this necessarily that we need to worry about detailings of wood and those type of things. In fact, a lot of the buildings these days are going very modern and minimalist, where they're doing stained concrete and doing incredible things with that versus, very lavish, detail buildings. I think we always have to be, cognizant of, that we're spending the taxpayers' money and trying to get the best possible value that we can. Because, I mean, there's any number of projects out there that if we pour it into this, we're taking it out of, something else. I understand your point that, I mean, I do think if we've got change orders, like things that we have to do, then, that's different. But I think in terms of let's make it as fancy as possible, I don't know if I feel like I'm being a good steward.
What we were trying to do with the selection of the materials to get something, first of all, that's durable, that's going to last, for many years. And the second was to get something that's attractive for the price and durable, so that when we're done with the building and you come in to look at it, or when we have people come into planning to ask about how they can bring a certain business to town, because we are the people they contact before anybody else knows about it, because many of the site location companies want to find where they're going to be and what they're going to do before they ever let you know that they're coming to town, because they don't want the land to get inflated. There's a lot of things they want to check. And I've been in this same position at another city before for many years, and that's what they do. So they come contact the mayor, they contact the economic development in Sherwood, and then they come see us and talk about codes and zones and locations and utilities and things. So we have people from out of town, out of state, that do come to that building, but we've got people every day that are coming into the courts, just as well. And then, all the other residents that come in to get a permit for their fence or for their outbuilding or something like that. So There's a lot of traffic. I did actually ask my staff to try to keep a count one time last year, and we were in some days 20 and 30 people, and some days 60 and 70 people that are just constant traffic coming into our part. I don't know what the Judge Hale would. I don't know what kind of walk-in traffic you have daily, but I would suspect it's very much similar to that. So we just got a lot of traffic coming out of that building, so it's noticed. And what I really want is for you to be able to be as proud of that building as I know you are of your splash pad and your soccer and fields and the tennis and all. I mean, those are good things. They make Sherwood look like and protecting the look of 107.
Those are fun things.
Well, I do, and I have to defend things like sewage that's buried and nobody wants to talk about.
Right.
You know, we have to. We're the ones that have to take care of that.
Yeah, they're going to fun things. So basically, what we need to do is amend this ordinance. Did anyone make that motion yet?
I'll make the motion. Amend to is the 249,575 to 280,000 even.
I'll second that motion to amend for the amendment.
Sanders.
Aye.
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 Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMinn.
Aye.
Harmon.
Aye.
An ordinance appropriating additional funds from the General Fund 2019 budget for the remodeling of the former Amy Sanders Library of the City of Sherwood, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. That's the first reading as amended.
Move to suspend the rules, place the ordinance on second reading.
Second.
Sanders.
Aye.
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 Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMinn.
Aye.
Harmon.
Aye.
An ordinance appropriating additional funds from the General Fund 2019 budget for the remodeling of the former Amy Sanders Library of the City of Sherwood, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. That is the second reading.
Do we suspend the rules and place it on third reading?
Second.
Sanders.
Aye.
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 Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMinn.
Aye.
Harmon.
Aye.
An ordinance appropriating additional funds from the General Fund 2019 budget for the remodeling of the former Amy Sanders Library of the City of Sherwood, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. That is the third reading of the ordinance.
Move for adoption as amended.
Second.
Sanders.
Aye.
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 Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMinn.
Aye.
Harmon.
Aye.
There is an emergency clause.
Sanders.
Aye.
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 Brooks.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Roderick.
Aye.
Lilly.
Aye.
McMinn.
Aye.
Harmon.
Aye.
Mayor, that is the agenda.
Thank you. Item number 11, is there any old business to bring before the council? Okay, I have a couple of items of new business. One thing that our Public Works Director did ask me to announce is I believe beginning this week, some of his crews will be out doing their annual drive at night, 8 to 11, checking for street lights. It's out. They do this on a routine basis. It's hard to catch them all, but if you do have any that come up that perhaps we miss, which I don't anticipate that, but anytime during the year, just call 835-3288 Public Works, and Miss Belinda will know which utility company to turn those in for correction. So, 835-3288. That's who I call when I see one out or something, or I get a call. We always call that number, and they keep a list of that going. Also, I have not said anything to anybody, but I would like to. I'd like to get some thoughts. Now, Sonny and I did talk about it a little bit, but as far as council, you know, we have a small little library on Sherwood Avenue, and it's the utilization of that is very, very small. I'd like to just get some feedback in the next month or two about if your neighborhoods are really if that's a real priority to keep that open. One suggestion is perhaps let that serve as maybe a little history facility, like a museum. Yes, yeah, and because we do have a very nice new library, and that's the facility is so small over there, so it's open minimal hours anyway. But that's something that I would like to get your feedback on. We're not trying to upset any of the residents, but I just don't know if it's really utilized. Have you checked? Do we have any numbers? We do, and they're pretty low. Am I correct, Sonny?
Like pretty low, like in teens or like in 20s? Okay.
Well, no, we don't spend a lot keeping it open either because it's not open 8 to 5. And I would anticipate a little museum area wouldn't either. But that might be something that is our historical side of town. So that might be something I'd be very interested in. April 1 of 2020 is the official count for the census. We did very well with that in the 2010 census. We worked very hard, had a great turnout success with that. I have been in contact, or I've tried to contact the representative that we had before that allowed some community stimulus money type of things, and we have not been able to get in contact with him. But we are on track to do very well with the census, but we need to formally form a complete count committee. And we thought April 1st of this year would be a great time to kick it off since it's going to be exactly 1 year. Josh, a young man in the planning development department, is taking care of that for us this time. So if you, I know of a resident that's already come to me that said they would like to serve on that, but a lot of organizations, we need representatives from organizations, churches, civic groups that can help us to get that word out. So we had a very successful 2010 census. Many of us on this council and our leaders, we worked on Saturday mornings at Walmart, handing out materials and working with groups, trying to get our count, and it paid off for us very well.
And it'd be great if we could have some of that promotional material, because I think that really helped handing those items out, and it got the civic groups involved also, because they could give out stuff. It made them get more involved also.
What I'd like to propose, and Richard said this had been done and where he had worked in the past, I believe, the city can actually probably budget some money to help fund some promotion of the census. So that's something, if you've got some ideas, we just want our people to understand how important, once again, that it is that everyone's counted. So appreciate your help on that. And is there any more new business before I move forward? In the way of announcements, Animal Shelter, Sherwood Annual Pet Fair and Fundraiser will be Saturday, April the 6th. Sherwood Senior Citizen Annual Fish Fry was mentioned earlier, but that will be Saturday, April 27th. Keep Sherwood Beautiful, Sherwood Great American Cleanup will be a Saturday, April 6th. Sherwood Annual Easter Egg Hunt will be Sunday, April 21st. Sherwood Mayor's Prayer Breakfast will be Tuesday, May 7th. And Enchanted Night 2019 Father-Daughter Dance is going to be Thursday, April 18th at Sherwood Forest. Are there any more announcements?
Yes, Mayor. The opening ceremonies for the Optimist Club is going to be Friday, April the 12th at 6 o'clock on Field 1. So hope everybody can be there.
Should.
We did.
Mike, can you say that again?
Sorry.
That's okay.
The opening ceremonies for the Sherwood Optimist Club is going to be Friday, April 12th at 6 o'clock on Field 1.
And also, I have been reminded I need to announce our new recycle contract that begins April 1 does not allow for glass in our recyclable containers. That was that video that you heard prior to the meeting tonight. The campaign is Glass Breaks. That's kind of their slogan. But Brian's department is in the process of having those little Coroplast signs created that we're going to move around the neighborhoods to help people know. We understand that not everyone is going to start April 1st, but that's a good place to start. We're going to work with them throughout the next several months, and we will have a drop-off facility at Public Works. And we're working with some area businesses that would allow us to have some small drop-off sites there. So if you've got a good relationship with some businesses that you think might allow us to have a small secured area where we can make that available to our residents, we would appreciate it.